If you doubt they're overwhelmingly leaning left, then just check out the website that universities fund to run think pieces by the staff. It's called The Conversation, where today, for instance, you can read how colonial ideas have allegedly kept New Zealand and Australia in a rut of policy failure, and that what we really need is apparently to be more racist, to have policy by Indigenous people instead, have 3% of the people who are Aboriginal write the policies in a partnership with the 97% who are not. Apparently, it sounds to me a bit like a 50-50 deal, which doesn't seem quite fair. Well, academics, when you make this charge, seem torn between denying there is a left-wing bias and saying, well, what's the big deal anyway? Let's not exaggerate. And among the deniers, though, is Lauren Rosewarne, who's an associate professor of the politics department at Melbourne University, who denied everything on 3AW last week. Here she is before it got unstuck when she mentioned me. Host Tom Elliott was telling her about all the students telling him how left-wing their lecturers were and how intolerant.
He said that, all the academics are very left-wing. They all believe, you've got to talk about climate change and feminism and how white people are evil and how colonialism is awful and all that sort of thing.
It's a lot to cram into one essay.
Well, it is, but he said if you don't echo those sorts of sentiments, you'll be marked down. And he was adamant about it.
Yeah, look, I can't imagine any of my colleagues doing this. Firstly, I think there's a real misunderstanding as though academics all think alike. I have sat in 20 years worth of departmental meetings to know we can argue about anything. We're not all singing from the same songbook.
And they say that for them, the only way to get a good mark is to simply agree with the teacher.
Look, I find it really hard to believe.
And then he said, what if you mentioned Andrew Bolt? What she said was, automatic F. Automatic F. Have a listen.
If I wrote an essay, I was in your course, I wrote an essay saying that, European colonisation of Australia was actually a really good thing for Indigenous people, and I argued it cogently and whatever, even though you might disagree with that, would you potentially give me a good mark?
Yeah, provided you actually had a quality bibliography and you drew upon sources that we would consider legitimate. So these couldn't just be cobbled together from conservative newspapers online, but you actually had research to support your arguments? Absolutely.
Also say, I read Andrew Bolt's column in the Herald Sun, and that's where I learned about it.
Yeah, no? That will be an F promptly.
Now, looking at what she's written about me in the past, they clearly occupy rent-free a big space in her brain. But, bias right there. Conservatives, Andrew Bolt. Even when she's denying there is a bias. But this problem with academic bias has been there for a long time. In 2008, a parliamentary inquiry, Canberra, was looking into exactly that. And one of the witnesses there was Kevin Donnelly, who's now a senior research fellow at the Australian Catholic University and author of the Dictionary of Woke. Kevin Donnelly, thank you so much for your time. Are the arts faculties of most of our universities biased to the left, he says, asking a leading question that every dog actually in every kennel in the country would even know? I mean, seriously, why is this even beyond dispute?
Well, Andrew, far be it from me as a male, pale and stale person, a binary person. I'm heteronormative, so I'm guilty of all the sins of academia. And there's been research in America, England and Australia. And in some of this, it proves that up to 75% of academics are left of centre. They're cultural left. They either vote Labor in England, or in America, they vote Democrat. The argument has been there for over 20, 30 years, as you well know. And you can go back to people like Harold Bloom, who wrote about this a long time ago, how the cultural left has taken the long march through the institutions, especially universities, where there is a new gender now. They talk about a new trinity, rather, talking about gender, class, and race. And this critical race theory is taking over our universities. It's an issue, and it has real-world consequences, as you know.
It's strange. I've never heard students complaining that they're lecturers are too conservative. Apart from one example many years ago at Sydney University, and the guy was driven out. He was driven out, lost his job. All the other stuff I've heard is they're too much to the left. All the stuff you read in the conversation on that website, on the left. I mean, seriously, why the denials? I don't get the denials. Just admit to it, front up. Don't treat us like idiots. You get the same thing on the ABC. Oh, we're not biased, we're neutral. I mean, seriously, why is it? Why the shame of being called out?
I mean, there are a number of reasons there. One is if you go back to a Marxist academic, Marcuse, who wrote during the 60s and 70s, he argued that the left should take the long march, take over, infiltrate universities, the media, whatever it might be, institutions. And he argued you could use any means whatsoever. He argued you could be intolerant, you could cancel people, you could fire people, sack people. Academics, we all know, don't get promoted. Look at Ridd from Queensland, Peter Ridd, who has been proven correct about the Great Barrier Reef, but he lost his job for calling it out. So part of what the left does is to cancel people, and that is happening around the world. The other issue here is more a fact that you won't get published in peer-reviewed journals, you won't get promoted unless you're singing from the same hymn book as those who are neo-Marxist cultural left.
That's it too. Because you've actually seen a few academics, one at Melbourne University, there's some in Britain, who have questioned that they're feminists or they're lesbians, and they question the transgender campaign, and they've kicked back at it. Some have lost their jobs, and some have been hounded mercilessly on social media. So you're quite right. Kevin Donnelly, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.